winning isn't easy. Now, in my last segment of this podcast, I talked about the symptoms of a brain injury, the common reasons for denial, and the things that I think need to be done to put together a winning brain injury claim and to keep a person on claim. What I'm going to talk about next is how a Utah federal judge upheld United of Omaha's denial of disability benefits to a brain injury policyholder, because I think that this kind of explains how judges will look at these claims and some of the tools that disability carriers use in denying claims. Now, disability carriers will commonly scour a disability policyholder's medical history for statements that it can take out of context or they can conflate with an ability to work. They'll cherry pick neuropsychological testing and records, and they'll say that even an ability to work in some sort of a part-time capacity or even volunteer demonstrates an ability to work on a full-time basis. So they're cherry picking, they're taking things out of context, they're conflating. They do all of that to create a claims denial. And that's exactly what they did in the case of Jennifer L. versus United of Omaha. Now, when you apply for disability benefits and you're on claim, you're also asked to do reports of your activities. And that report can be found in the forms that you fill out or in your medical records or a combination of both. You need to understand that this is fodder for the disability carrier. Now, Ms. L was involved in a low-speed motor vehicle accident. She was rear-ended. She didn't hit her head. She didn't lose consciousness. She had a concussion evaluation. She reported fatigue, headaches, and difficulty with tasks that required focus. And she specifically said, look, the headaches and the cognitive problems occur at work, and they're impacting my ability to work, to read, and to complete activities of daily living. So far, so good. But some 7 months later, she reported she was hiking, biking, and that work was going good. Now, nobody explained what the word good meant, but that would come back to bite her. And then 3 months later, she reported she had vacationed for 2 weeks. She had obtained a puppy. She was hiking. She was walking. She was working 30 hours per week. Now, she did complain that her headaches were worse doing visually focused work, but you can see there's beginning to be a theme of improvement. Now, over the course of the next year, she reports skiing, hiking, biking, golfing, even though she's working a reduced or modified work schedule. The history is going to be seized upon by Mutual of Omaha to justify the claims denial. Now, I think you obviously have to be truthful about your activities, but I don't think she gave an accurate or complete history of her symptoms and functionality. So what do I mean? The medical records did not discuss how her brain injury and cognitive problems caused difficulty at work with tasks that required focus. What were those tasks she was having difficulty with? What were the symptoms she was experiencing? Second, the records never explained how the headaches caused any difficulty with work-related tasks. It didn't identify what the tasks were, what the symptoms were. Did she do any modification of her work environment? The third thing she didn't explain is what problems she had with her vacation. Did she limit her activity? Did any of the activity cause her problems? And if so, what? Did she have to stop that activity because of the headaches or the problems? Now, she also didn't explain what problems, if any, she was having getting or caring for a puppy. You know, I have a new dog, and that dog is requiring a lot of concentration, a lot of patience, and it's almost a full-time job to take care of this dog. So, again, explanation as to the problems she was having, both physically or cognitively, taking care of the puppy would have gone a long way to help her case. Now, she was also skiing, hiking, and golfing. Again, I love to hike. I love to ski. I don't golf. But if I had a brain injury and I was having cognitive problems, I might be having problems with perception on the ski slope. I might be having problems hiking, figuring out where I was, when to turn around, making judgment decisions. The other thing she didn't explain was yeah, she was working a reduced or modified work schedule, but she didn't explain why. What was modified? Why was it modified? What problems did she have with any of the modifications? Did she have any performance issues because of her symptoms? What were those problems? How did her employer address those issues? So you can see that this type of information would have given a clearer picture of her symptoms and functionality. Now, part of the denial toolbox kit games is cherry picking medical test results. And that's exactly what they did in this case. She had had a functional MRI that showed some abnormal activation associated with short-term or verbal memory. Now that sounds great, but did the treating physicians ever get a history that she was having any short-term memory issues, any verbal memory issues? Did she ever provide them with a history of how that was impacting her ability to function at work, or how that work might have been modified? Did the doctor explain any medical correlation between those findings and a reduced work schedule or activity? The answer was no. So the carrier got away with cherry picking the medical test results. But carriers also like to cherry pick neuropsychological testing and evaluations. The testing she had showed an adjustment disorder with mixed anxiety and depression with mild neurocognitive disorder secondary to traumatic brain injury. The test results indicated that there was no areas of profound impairment, but there was reduction in attention, executive functioning, and delayed recall. And that would have, in the provider's opinion, a marked impact on her ability to sustain workplace efficiency. It was suggested that she modify her workplace environment with respect to meeting and processing information. But guess what? There was no history of her problems with attention, executive functioning, workplace efficiency, or difficulties with meeting or information processing. Now, that should have been nailed down through a vocational evaluation and an opinion of the neuropsychologist that would have addressed this impaired function. But Mutual of Omaha pulled out another of their claim denial tools. They had her undergo a neuropsychological evaluation, and she wasn't prepared. I mean, it's clear that she never gave a history of the problems with the physical activity she was doing, any detailed history about her work activities she was having problems, and worse yet, the testing shows she gave poor effort, and the test results were inconsistent with the neuropsychological testing. So the carrier seized on it, saying she's lying, she didn't cooperate, she breached that part of her policy. She couldn't possibly be as disabled as she says, because look at all the things she's doing. Look at the lack of complaints. Look at the lack of modification or an explanation of those modifications. What she should have done was to hire an experienced ERISA disability attorney as soon as she was scheduled for that IME. In fact, I think sooner. But the attorney would have looked at her medical records and seen the deficiencies we discussed, would have prepared her for the IME, videotaped the IME interview with a neuropsychologist. Those are the things that should have been done. Now, her neuropsychologist attempted to rebut the opinions of the IME, but there really wasn't a good factual or vocational basis for his opinions. And Mutual of Omaha's doctors ultimately seized on those deficiencies to justify the denial. So what did the federal judge do with this? Well, the judge found that the results of the testing and records didn't support a mental or a physical impairment, that her daily functioning and her recreational activities were inconsistent with her self-reported symptoms, that her return to work in some capacity for more than a year after the accident was important because there was no evidence that she was having problems functioning, that the nature of her treatment was based on her self-reported symptoms, and that there is a general expectation that brain injuries gradually improve over time. None of this is a surprise. It all should have been anticipated and addressed. So what are the lessons learned? At each medical visit, you need to give a complete and accurate history of your symptoms and how those symptoms impact your ability to do things not only around the home and at your work. Make sure, number 2, that the testing results correlate with your symptoms and functionality. 3, hire an ERISA attorney in a brain injury claim. And certainly if you don't, you darn well better do it when you've been scheduled for an IME, because it's going to be crucial, number 4, that you get lots of prep for this IME. You also need to make sure that there is medical correlation between your symptoms and functionality and your diagnostic studies. You got to tie it all together in a coherent story. And you should be hiring a vocational rehabilitation counselor to correlate the symptoms and functionality issues with the inability to do your own occupation or any occupation. You can see that these were valuable lessons that she didn't know, didn't apply, but you will learn as a result of her mistakes. Hire an experienced ERISA disability attorney in a brain injury case. It's as simple as that. In the next segment, I'm going to talk about how the brain injury can impact an ERISA lawsuit's statute of limitations period. Let's take a break.
Are you a professional with questions about your individual disability policy? You need the Disability Insurance Claim Survival Guide for Professionals. This book gives you a comprehensive understanding of your disability policy with tips and to-dos regarding your disability application that will assist you in submitting a winning disability application. This is one you won't want to miss. For the next 24 hours, we are giving away free copies of the Disability Insurance Claim Survival Guide for Professionals. Order yours today at disabilityclaimsforprofessionals.com.